Thank you, Nataline. I think the words that resonated the most with me were the ones that you started with. Keep moving forward. The tides are always changing. We have a number of questions already from people. I think one of the other things that you said was with change comes fear. And one of the questions we had was the fear the same for each economic or personnel change?
Yes, I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Was the fear at the organization the same for each one of the economic or personnel changes?
Yes, yes. And it's always a challenge balancing that, something that may not be fearful for one, maybe for another. So it's really helped because we have the culture of, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you're worried about, what your concerns are. And I think back on the times where people were most fearful, this being one, if we didn't have that way of operating, how much we would be held back. So it's helped. I do have questions because I send out the Sunday email every week, and one of my letters was about fear, that fear keeps us from opportunities. And so I had a few employees ask me, are you saying that our fear is holding some of us back? And I had to remind them, everybody has fears in some way, shape, or form. It's just you address them, but we all have to work together to face the fears, and we have that, be proactive and just assess that fear, lean on each other to say, well, what can we put in place, or what will give us that comfort level so that we continue to move forward.
One of the questions we had was precisely about how did you handle cash flow issues that came during the recession, and now obviously.
When I first started Giroux, they were cutting checks, and I said, I know something's not right. Looking at your profits, there's no way you would have to be putting in so much money. And it was really focusing on and understanding where the cash flow issues are coming from. And I'm going back to that story. It was, they were recording things wrong. They had a suspense account because they really didn't know where to put money. It was just a lack of understanding of accounting. So, in the construction industry, I always tell companies that are growing in construction, or I would imagine for any company, make sure you have someone that understands your industry and that they're reporting things right, and that you understand it as an owner, and that you have, ideally, most people in your company at least understanding the basics of how cash flow works, why it's important to get billings out on time. But going back to the question of how we dealt with the cash flow issues, is our owner had to put some money in. We also leaned on our vendors and our customers. With the vendors, we renegotiated our terms. With our clients, we offered discounts to get early payment. And as far as internally at the company, we kept it up front and said, we're getting paid less on this job to get the money in our hands. So what are we going to do on the back end to be more efficient going forward on other jobs to make up for this? It's not a gift. It's not just appearing from nowhere. We're taking it from our company. We have to find it somewhere else, either by saving expenses in the future or upselling future projects. But in construction, again, that's the only industry I know a lot of, and cash flow is always an issue. You look at what you're overbilled, what you're underbilled. There may be a job that suddenly stops, right? You already have money in the project, so you always have to monitor that you're ahead and getting paid more than what you've spent, because if not, when it freezes, you're stuck. And then you have a lot of people after you have your bank wondering about their line of credit. We have a bonding company that says, well, you gave us a schedule of how you're going to perform and your cash flow. Now what are you going to do? So cash flow, for any company, is extremely important. And with anyone, they don't like surprises. So to have to go to your employees, if you're not careful and say, I don't know if I can pay you this week. It's not like they have the ability to say, okay, landlord, I'm not going to pay my rent or make my mortgage payment. So as a company, you have to be able to, watch how you deliver a message, but also do your very best to have scenarios in case things go sideways at all times. But yeah, cash flow is definitely a team approach, and it's really important for us that we continually make sure that we keep close partnerships and relationships with our vendors, our key clients, so that when those time comes, they know they can rely on you and you know, help you out sometimes.
Nataline, you and I have talked a little bit about this transition from a normal corporate structure to this employee-owned structure. Can you take us through that process? I know you said it was a lengthy process. And also, how do you today organize to make decisions?
Okay, so as an employee-owned company under an ESOP structure, we're still a corporation, so we do follow compliance of corporations. But that's big when someone comes into a company that's employee-owned, or when we transitioned into employee ownership. People are saying, well, what does that mean? Am I personally liable if something goes wrong with the company or goes sideways? Does this mean that I can be involved in all of the decisions, right? But whether a company is employee owned or not, you separate out duties. You're not going to have everybody doing the same thing anyhow. So, you know, a lot of the conversation is we will leave that for this team of people that handle that area of your business. And when it comes to decisions, you know, we tell them we still have a board of directors, we have our executives, we have people that will handle that. And with anything, you know, they say not everybody can be the chief, or not everyone can be Indians, right? You need that balance of the leaders. And I don't want to say followers, because we never use the word followers at Giroux. You know, we're from day one when somebody starts Giroux, we're grooming them to be a leader. And we tell them, you don't have to supervise others to be a leader. We're all leaders. And as an employee owner, as an employee-owned company, it's our responsibility to protect and grow our company, because it's not just about us, it's about the future generations. So I would say, being an ESOP employee-owned company, it's never just the cutoff point. Here's documentation, here's all you need to know. It is constant and continual education, communication, and this, I don't know if this was part of the question or not, but if there are companies that are interested in becoming an ESOP, I would highly recommend attending ESOP conferences, talking to other companies that are employee owned, and most importantly, you need to have at least a few employees that are really inspired by ESOPs and being employee owned, because it takes a team of employees to carry on and keep that culture of employee ownership's accountability. And yeah, it's a lot of work. Being an ESOP is kind of like having a side business, and it's just as important as your main business. So.
And you talked a little bit about this idea about keeping employees focused on their impact. How do you today educate your employee owners to understand the impact that each of them has operationally on the financial performance of the company?
Well, originally when we first started talking about becoming employee owned, and we had confirmed that we did not want to sell the company, we didn't want to merge with someone else, or go out of business, we wanted to continue on as employee owned. The first thing that we did is we brought all of our employees together, some in separate meetings, but together, and we taught them the very basics. You know, this is how you make money, this is what it costs to run a business, and what you have left. And it was interesting because, you know, we brought everybody in and we said, how much, just a real simple survey. How much do you think the company makes, bottom line? And we did it in ranges, 1 to 5%, 5 to 10%. The majority of them, at least 60% of them, thought the company made between 30 and 50% profit. And we said, oh my gosh. And so they said, well, I don't understand. I see what we sell work for, and how can we have $1 million job? I mean, of course we're making a lot of money. So then you go through and say, yeah, you have all the direct cost for your job, but overhead, we said, look around, the lights are on, we're in a building, we have taxes. and we dwindled it down and got down to the, the industry averages, and they were, I mean, just looking around the room, they were shocked, right? And I said, "Oh my God, why did we wait so long to do this?" And then we had some trials and errors. We had talked about bringing a professor from USC over to go over accounting and teach them, having them all take accounting courses. But you know what? They don't want to know all the details. So, we had to get it down to simplifying it and make it easy to understand. And I remember early on, I had talked to Anne Marilee out of bringing in a professor in and letting me do it. And I thought about all the conversations I had had through the years, and really what people, they all want to know, but do they really want to know, and in which way? So I remember going home, and I printed out pictures of like a lemonade pitcher and lemons and dollars and a sign, and I made it like a lemonade sale. I said, you sell your lemonade for $1, and how much was it for, the napkins and the cups, and then what we had left. And I think that resonated more than whipping out all of the income statements and the balance sheets. And I said, this goes to your balance sheet. And then from there, we have continually tweaked our information in a way that employees understand, and then getting feedback and questioning them. Did you understand what you saw? So currently, fast forward through the 20 years that I've been here and where we are today is we have committees that offer education. We encourage everybody to go to our accounting department, and we said, don't worry if they're too busy. That is part of their job, to make the time to educate you. But most importantly, we call them scoreboard meetings. So every other week we have Zoom meetings. They used to be in person in our different locations, but now they're Zoom. And we go over our budget to actuals, and we have KPIs that we track. And then we open it up for questions and concerns. And you know what's interesting? During the pandemic, more people asked questions on Zoom than they did in person. So that offered a comfort level, because I think it's that fear of, what if I'm the only one who didn't understand that? I don't want to ask. But I think when they're in the room by themselves on a Zoom meeting, they ask more questions. And so then we track it. We also do we do bonuses and have different bonus structures. But one thing that we do company-wide for all our employee owners is we have a target, and we say if we meet this target, we're going to put, say, $50,000 in the pot, and for every $100,000, we're going to add another $10,000 in the pot. So it's up to us to work together and get the pot higher. And then at the end of the year, everybody equally, from the receptionist to our executives, get the same thing. And that's our way of saying everybody is important, and we all have the opportunity to grow our bottom line and add value to the company. And for some, for a receptionist getting this bonus, it's like, a car payment or, their rent check. Whereas it's, if it's an executive, it might be, hey, I'm going to go for a weekend, but it's something. But most importantly, is it's something that they can touch, and they know that this is something I earned as a whole with all of us together, and that we're all important, and in every way we can make a difference. And then we also encourage our supervisors to meet with everybody in their department and go over their role and say, well, how could you in this role impact the company? So it's always changing, and sometimes it has to do with the department, the location, the employee personality, whatever way they need to learn and understand how they make a difference. But there is no quick, straight way to say, here's the manual, this is what we're going to do from here on out, and it works for everybody. It's a collaborative effort by a team of people at Giroux that believe in this and want people to understand, that they come to work and they make a difference. And it's never just a job. You're here to impact our company and our communities, and that they're important no matter what their role is.
Nataline, in our last 2 minutes, I will tackle a very large question, which has to do with culture. Both the incorporating new people who are new to the company as versus people who've been with the company 20 and plus years, and also generationally. How do you incorporate millennials versus people who've been in the workforce longer than that?
Well, what we, so again, when I started Drew, I was the second youngest, and there wasn't, I mean, as far as diversity and people from different backgrounds, there was some. But as far as the generations, I mean, we had a few in the field, and in our office, it was myself, and I was 30 when I started Drew, and the youngest was 29. And that was a problem. So we put a lot of effort. I mean, we always strive to hire the best person for the job, but we made sure that we got more applicants, so that we can shift that, because, you know, we have to continue on. And then it's also important that we keep seasoned people so that we use their expertise to groom the younger ones. So it was a lot of set goals to you know, mix the generations. So right now we're about 40% millennials and under. Our gap right now is probably between the 45 and 55-year-olds. And so we have, you know, mentorship programs that, you know, along with recruiting, but to make sure that we have a plan either to get the millennials up there quicker or slow down the seasoned ones from leaving. But it is important, and it's a balance. So we do that. And as far as understanding, you know, that was probably one of the main reasons why we started doing a lot of personality assessments. We do a lot of assessments here about self-awareness and understanding yourself, because it wasn't just, you know, it was the finger pointing. Well, you know, the younger ones saying, well, they're old and they're set in their ways. And then the older ones saying, the younger ones, God, you know, are they going to roll out of bed? Are they going to be all over the place? Are they even going to stay at the company? And we said, you know, there's strengths and weaknesses and perceptions, but take away people's ages and look at them as individuals. You know, no one likes to be labeled, you know, and so we did different scenarios. If you're old, do you want to see that you're out of style and you're a dinosaur and you're uninnovative? So don't label the young ones as saying, you know, they're going to Fred Flintstone out. I mean, there are some young people, Fred Flintstone is an old cartoon. Anyhow, you know, the bell would ring, they take off, right? And understand the way they you know, they work. So it was a lot of teaming them up together to work on projects together, the mentorship, working as teams, and really highlighting that people have things to offer. And me on the personal level, especially early on, we started bringing young people in. I would make it a point to highlight what the person brings. So, like right now in the room with me is one of our 24-year-olds. He's a project coordinator, crazy smart, but he has a background in IT, right? And so he mentioned that he has his review today, and I said, well, you make sure that you highlight. I shared with him what I thought about him. You know, he's always steps up to help. He's innovative. He inspires the older ones to take risks with innovation that they're not used to. And I said, so make sure they put that in your review, because I'm going to make sure that I go and tell them, right? So I think as leaders of the company, it's also our responsibility to not assume that people see what the younger ones can bring, or that what the older ones can still bring, and make it a point to keep it in the conversation and highlight the strengths and how together we can help each other with the weaknesses, that we need each other. You know, and then also with generational education and the differences, we've had webinars, and we send people to conferences to educate them, and we make sure that in the past that we've sent older generations and younger ones. So they come back and they said, and then we make it, you know, more of a forum approach and say, well, what did you learn? And they say, well, you know, I always thought this generation thought this way, but I learned this about myself. And then we make it a conversation. So I can't remember the last time I heard someone say, oh, well, they're young. You know, they don't. We encourage them to look at them as individuals and not their age or lack of experience. And I also say this, you know, somebody in a position, just because they've been doing something 30 years doesn't automatically mean they're going to grow and be a rock star, right? And somebody young that maybe only has 10 years can many times pass up the person that's been doing it a long, long time. Like, don't discount that, because then we just hold ourselves back from seeing the talent that we have in our organizations.
Nataline, thank you so much for being with us today. Congratulations to you and to Giro Glass for being on IC 100 list again this year. Look forward to seeing you next week at the awards. And for now, we're going to transition to a quick break, give you time to refresh your coffee, and we will restart in about 5 minutes right here in the Keynote Theater. Nataline, thank you, and thank you, everyone.
And thank you on ICC for having me. Thank you.